Hi everybody, it's Houston Singletary for the Ableton Live Clinic. Today's lesson we're going to go through and talk about compressor sidechain, and we're going to use this feature to achieve that pumping effect, that pumping, breathing, dance style effect that you hear in just about every track that's out there. Every electronic record, every dance record seems to have this effect these days. Ableton Live 8 allows you to do this with the compressor audio effect device. So let's go ahead and talk about what we've got here. I've got a few tracks set up. I've got a drum loop on track 1. I'm using the Impulse Ableton instrument for our kick drum, which we'll get to in just a second. I'm also using a bass line on track 3, a lead line, which will be featuring our sidechain compression on track 4, and on track 5 an arpeggiator pattern, which will also be featuring the sidechain compressor effect that we're going to be zeroing in on today. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the elements that we need to work with our compressor, and mainly the sidechain feature. Before we get to that, let's go back and talk about one main important feature that we need, one parameter, one sound that's going to make all this possible, no matter how you set it up. And on track 2, you see we've got the basic Impulse instrument, and we've got a kick drum. I'm going to play it. As you can see, the track's muted. That's going to come into play later, and we'll talk about that more. I'll go ahead and unmute it. It's got a nice round kick drum sort of combination. So there we go. So I'm going to leave that unmuted for a second. I'm going to play it, and here's the pattern. I'll double click on the clip or hit Shift Tab, and you can see I've got a basic 4 on the floor pattern going for 1 bar, looped inside our MIDI note editor. So there you go. So that's our element that we need that we're going to be feeding into our sidechain compressor over here on track 4. Lead sidechain 2 is the first instrument we're going to use. Let's go ahead and play the MIDI clip that I've got on this track. MIDI note editor there. Pretty basic little line that I played there. A little trancey kind of electro house sort of line that we've got going. But let's go ahead and go back to the compressor. And I'm going to open that up with our sidechain toggle right here. And now you can see we've got the sidechain chooser window available. I'm going to select that. And very important, down below, I've got the audio from chooser window. And I'm going to select that audio input to come from the Impulse on track 2. There you go. It's that easy. Up to this point, it's lots of third-party plugins and other sidechain compression scenarios. Took a lot of routing with Live 8, and with the compressor audio effect device, it's really very easy. Select sidechain, select your chooser window input, and there you go. Now let's listen to that same lead line with the new sidechain effect turned on inside compressor. Now I'm going to go back over to the kick drum. Remember we talked about leaving that muted and not hearing it? Well, here's the effect. Take it out of the mix. Let's go back over to this drum loop. I'm going to use this Drum Rivers collection from the Loopmaster series, just as a basic reference. Here we go. Fire that off. And now you can see we get that effect we're trying to achieve with a compressor. So taking that signal from Impulse, feeding it into the sidechain chooser input, and that input signal is going through the threshold parameters, the release parameters. Let's look at that for a second. Let me go ahead and stop the drum clip for a second. I'm going to play the lead line. And let's adjust some of these parameters. You can see how quickly we can affect the overall output and extend the release. A little softer release, sustain if you will. Check it out. We'll adjust this attack. So to get that breathing effect, that pumping style, we've got to zero in on these parameters, tighten up that release, really bring that threshold all the way down. By default, we're sitting right about here. You can see the difference. So start to really push that threshold down and get that pumping effect. And what's happening is this kick drum is feeding in on the downbeat. When it does, it completely compresses that signal by using that Impulse kick drum that we were feeding into the sidechain input. But when there's no signal coming into the sidechain input, it releases that threshold, allowing that sound to pass back through in its natural state. All right, let's look over to the art pattern. I did the same thing here. Let's fire that off. Right now, it's just playing a basic arpeggiator pattern, kind of bright top-end stuff there. Let's go to the compressor. Let's open up our toggle for our sidechain. See, I've got sidechain, audio input, chooser, Impulse. There we go. Good to go. Let's just turn it on the fly, see what happens. And we'll fire that drum loop off one more time. Give ourselves a little reference there. And now we're going to go to my bass line. We're not using any kind of sidechain compression here. Just a simple bass line to kind of round things out. Here we go. And I can line everything up over here on my scene launch, which is great. So if I want to, I can go back to the art pattern, go down to the compressor, and I can bypass sidechain, bring it back in. Very, very cool. Let me show you another feature that's nice inside Live 8, the ability to copy and paste devices, audio effects and instrument devices. I'll simply click on the title bar of the compressor. I'll copy it. Now I'm going to go over to the master track, and I'll simply click on the detail view down below, the device view, and I will paste it in. Now let's fire it off. There we go. So now I've got compressor with the sidechain feature that I used on the lead line and the arpeggiator pattern also in the master. This may not be the desired effect that you want for your overall mix, but it certainly shows you the power and flexibility that we have inside Live 8 with this great feature. We can also bring down output parameter here. Bring the release a little bit. Send that attack. There we go. Now we can go back and forth just by selecting bypass. Bring it in. So all kinds of really interesting effects that we can do there. So there you go. There's a look at our sidechain compression effect inside Live 8 with compressor. Sidechain feature that you see here. We're simply feeding in. Nice rounded kick drum from Impulse and feeding that into the input chooser inside our sidechain feature on both the lead line and the art pattern. And there you have it. That's a look at the sidechain compressor feature inside Live 8. I'm Houston Singletary. Thanks for watching.